1. So we will do that. So item 3 will be number 1 on the agenda, and then everything will follow that. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the passing of a longtime city, not an employee, but a city volunteer, and that was Dwayne Barmore. He passed away on April 4th, and he and I especially probably spent 10 years together.
At least half an hour.
Commission.
Yeah, no, I get it.
In fact,
All good.
he served as a scoutmaster at Troop 140, that's St. Luke's. He's a Middleton optimist. He served on the Plan Commission, the Westport Joint Planning Commission, the Community Development Authority. Plus, he was on the Recycling Committee, the Police Commission, Community Foundation, Zoning Board of Appeals, and even FUDA. And I don't remember what FUDA is.
Future Urban Development
That's what
Area.
I thought, yeah. So talk about a guy that really wanted to do his community service. He was it, and we're going to miss him sorely. They are going to have a gathering of family and friends on Saturday, June 22nd from 1 to 4 at Capitol Brewery, if anybody wants to attend. Mark will, I know. But you like beer.
I also remember Dwayne very fondly.
Yes. Okay. That's that. Let's go to item 3, which is now an item 1. Who's here from the school?
Roll call.
Oh, roll call, yeah. I suppose we should do that.
Adams,
Here.
Bruce,
Here.
Park,
Here.
Moniro. Here. Summers. Here. And Chair Sonntag is present. Commissioner Erdman Hermans is absent and excused.
Okay, thank you. All right, Plan Commission minutes of April 9th. Is there a motion? Changes?
Changes.
Okay,
We typically just ask for changes and then
okay,
chair approves
sure.
or accepts. On page 7, in Hans Hilbert's comment, it should be properly, not probably. Is this application properly before the commission?
Page 7 of the packet.
Of the packet, yes.
Yes.
Anything else?
There was one minor,
Yeah.
other minor on item 8, page 8 of the minutes, or 10 in the packet. The motion passed. It has an empty spot for the number affirmative. Should say 6-0.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? Hearing none, then I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Minutes passed. Okay, item 3 then.
Mr. Chair, may
Yeah.
I just record them as you having, I don't know if there was a motion or a second to approve, right? I don't think there was. So,
We typically don't.
right,
Oh, you
but because
typically
he's
haven't.
calling the question, I just wanted to clarify that you're declaring them approved as with those changes.
Yeah.
If that's okay with you.
Yes.
Accept.
Okay. Or,
It's quite all right.
so there won't be a motion recorded.
That's fine. Okay, who's here from the school district to talk about the site plan review? Yep.
This where you want?
I'm not sure if that microphone is on and we're recording the meeting, so if you could go to the podium, that would be better.
Is this where I have the other presentation?
Yes, from.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Hello, my name is Scott Grahalski. I'm with Point of Beginning. We're the civil engineering firm that is helping the district through the development of their project. And if we are, do I flip the we have a little presentation. It's about 15 minutes. I'm going to kind of move through it, so we don't want to take any longer. So if we could flip the next one.
Yep.
So just a quick overview on the presentation. So we're going to talk about, our team, talk about the project scope. The one thing that's we really want to hit on today is why why softball is moving to the campus, and then why we want to do synthetic turf. That's really the most polarizing piece of this. So we wanted to try to give you some of our thoughts.
Okay.
What we're going to hit on is usability, cost, grass versus turf, safety, and then there's a bunch of environmental stuff that's out there. And we're trying to even ourselves catch up on all those different things. So you want to flip it? So really today I've got with the school, I see, well, Jared's here and Dale's here. Jamie's the activities director. We've been working with them. And then Lindsay and I from Point of Beginning. A little bit on Point of Beginning. We're about 22 years old. We build we do a lot of different engineering, but myself specialize in activities and athletics. We've probably put in 50 or 60 turf fields over the last 10 years, probably over 100 million of construction. And a lot of that is both natural and grass. So we really don't, and we have no opinion on either, but we can help answer questions. Okay. So really, a really quick scope. You guys know this. We want to renovate the baseball field and we want to add turf to it. And we want to build a brand new softball field on campus. And then we want to reconstruct our tennis courts. So that's the brief scope of the plans that were submitted. Next slide. And I'm going to turn it over to Jared to talk about why they want to move softball and then why turf is a good option for them.
Thanks, Scott. And as Scott indicated, I'm Jared Rosing. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Operations with the school district. When we started working through this process, we recognized that Title IX is one of the biggest areas of why we want to move and create this project. Currently, our softball team is playing off-site at the Firefighters Memorial Park, which is about 3 miles away, 10 minutes from the high school. And it does require our girls to either catch a ride with someone else or have their own transportation. Especially after COVID, we all had the issues of school bus drivers and having transportation. And the other part is we want to provide that same opportunity for our female athletes that we're providing for our male athletes. The other part of it too is having a home base for our female athletes was very important because they can take some more ownership of it. They can take some more pride. Not that the firefighters field was terrible. They enjoyed it there, but we also knew this being able to go out. One of the things that when we did that, we wanted to look at our population based out with our athletic conference. So we did list out all the schools that are in our athletic conference. And you can see that we have the highest student population. And if you look, we have 48 acres that we can work with. That includes our building acres. So there's not much green space available. And there is 15.19 that's available to us through our city lease. But as we work through
and I can't get to my volume.
When you change to the next slide for us, we're going to talk a little bit about the next slide, please. That's right.
Trying to figure out how to get rid of the border here.
Gotcha. What we're calling the domino effect. So we have the baseball field, we have our turf football fields. We have lots of FIAD classes just because of the size of our high school that's utilizing that green space, utilizing a lot of the turf on the high school ball fields. If we're placing a softball field in the green space, we know that that's going to take up green space that's going to push others out of that area. Our baseball field is in excellent condition, as you probably had noted in the update that was given to you from Rutler. The reason it's in excellent condition is we do not allow any other group other than our baseball team to play on that. No FIAD classes go on it. No lacrosse cannot practice on it. We literally keep it off limits. So that green space that we have available currently that we would turn into our softball diamond is going to take away opportunities. That's the reason that we're asking for turf to happen both at the softball diamond and at the baseball diamond, because those outfields can also be utilized for other practice opportunities. We also know that maintenance is lower, which Scott will talk about. We know it's a more upfront cost. However, as we look through it over the next 20 years, and then when we talk about event scheduling, we know that when we have a wet spring or just a wet season, that there's lots of cancellations, which require us to reschedule or do lots of double headers, which is an injury, potentially going to increase injury to our athletes. The other part is that we also then can have less restrictions. As I indicated, our baseball diamond right now is in excellent condition because we don't allow any Phi Ed or any other groups out there. By able to have that turf, we can allow our Phi Ed groups to go out there. You may ask the question, why can't our Phi Ed just use our football field? But when you have over 2,200 students, we have multiple Phi Ed classes that are happening. So that space is already being utilized and to be able to have other spaces for them.
Thanks. Okay, if you could switch. So there's four topics I want to hit on. One is usability. What we did is we interviewed school staff, and we've done this for other schools too, where we look at if you build these two fields with natural surfaces or you do them with synthetic, what are the opportunities? How much can you use them? And working with Jamie and his team, you can see if we go natural, we can get 168 events or 408 hours of use on those fields. And I'll skip down to one. And what an event is a group of people, athletes or students on the turf for an extended period of time. The other thing I'll hit on is grass. There's a lot of studies out there that talk about natural grass cannot take more than about 70 events before maintenance has a hard time keeping up with it. So you can see and it just worked out the way we were proposing is there's 96 and 72 events on the natural surface. When you go synthetic, it just really opens up. There's no limitation. So the school would like to use this 831 times, 831 events on those surfaces, which equate to 1,447 hours. So you can see it just explodes with how much you can use it. The one thing and as we've sat through a lot of these meetings, sometimes sports gets the bad rap where you're just trying to spend money. It's all about football or baseball or whatever. Turf is something and we've seen this through many districts, they're using it from 8 in the morning till 3 o'clock at night. Almost there's more use out of the school and the educational hours than there is after school. And in Middleton they're going to get 400 different events happening during the day that they would not be able to use their baseball field for. So that's a benefit. Okay, the next, please. So we did and I'm not going to get into all the nitty gritty detail. We've done this for numerous schools where we analyze cost, upfront construction cost for a turf field versus grass. We look at the maintenance cost of turf versus grass. And then there's some replacement costs for turf downstream. And then we compare that with the hours of use, right? And then you do the analysis. So when you look at hours of use versus cost, it costs twice as much to build a grass field per hour, right? It's like a vehicle. It's hours of use, hours per mile. So really long-term investment, it costs more to start, but in the end, you're getting more out of it. Okay, next. Now here's some other polarizing topics. The whole injury thing, you see that all over the place where some athletes are, in the NFL is big. They're talking about, turf and grass. The one thing we can tell you is that we do a ton of work in the K-12 market. We do site evaluations. We walk 50, 60, 70 fields a year, writing reports on where we rank fields from excellent all the way down to critical. The consistency of the surface, how planar it is and how hard it is are the two things you look for, right? So when a field is built, a brand new grass field and a brand new turf field, the consistencies are pretty close. The GMAX or the hardness of the HIC testing are pretty close. But what we find is that, and then when you start debating injury, there's a ton of articles out there on both sides of that ledger. So it's hard even for us to kind of filter through all of that. So all I can do is speak to our experiences. When you have a grass field that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, we are ranking the majority of those fields throughout the state as either poor or on the low side of fair, just because of settlement and the wear and tear. K-12 budgets don't allow to spend $50,000 and $100,000 a year to keep up a grass surface like some of the major colleges or pro teams do. So I think the debate on safety, in my opinion, when you get an older grass field, it's worse than an older turf field because that consistency is there, the concussion pads are there. That's our opinion. That's my thoughts. The other thing, now we did reach out to, we've done so many fields. We reached out to some local people, some past clients, and I said, hey, just give me some feedback. Have you had any injury, like significant injury changes, either good or bad? And everybody we've talked to say that there's just nothing there. I mean, there's injuries that happen. A lot of them may be contact, some of them are not, but they could not pin down and say, just because we put in turf, our ACL injuries went through the roof. And that's just our experience, right? So even though I think Middleton, I think Tim was here, the coach last time, saying that over the 17 years they've had their turf, he can't put his finger on more or less injury. Heat is another thing that gets beat down on. I think when you're in the southern part of the United States, when it's hot all the time, that's an issue, more of an issue. But for Middleton and for baseball and softball, when does it start? Late March, there's snow on the ground. When that field's a little bit warmer, it's melts quicker, it's safer, and the athletes like it better because it's not a ton warmer, but it's a little bit warmer, and it's just more playable. No doubt, when you get to the middle of summer, you're going to have to monitor it. Yeah, if it gets too hot, you might have to reschedule. But for baseball and softball, we think it's a benefit. Okay, for the next. Here's one that I'm not a chemist and I'm not a doctor, but this PFAS thing has caused me to dive deep into it and try to figure out what that even meant when people were beating this down. My understanding is that there are 10,000 different chemicals in this family of chemicals, right? They call PFAS. And they're in everything. Food, containers, microwave, popcorn bags, candy wrappers, shampoo. They're in everything. There are 30 of them that the EPA said are bad, that they are really restricting. And I wrote up there, low levels of PFAS are found in turf. They are, but none of which are the EPA's on their hazardous list. Okay, so that is something that is just to consider. We're not saying they're not there. The other thing is grass, even dirt has PFAS in it. And there are minimum standards that the EPA has for dirt. You can only have so much, and then you have to remediate or fix. Turf, when tested, is below those PFAS standards. Okay, they're below the standards that dirt is held to. Okay, next. Microplastics is another one that's a hot topic. There was a two-phase study that the EPA did. They started in 2016. They just came out in April with the second part of that. And what they were really testing for was another, is pH concentrations. And those are chemicals that are found naturally.
How's the sink?
Crude oil and gasoline, those are chemicals that are found in those products. And they were testing athletes that played on grass and on turf. So urine samples and trying to figure out, was there any difference? And they found no difference. We've attached that report that just came out here in April to this packet. But with that said, the school has told us we're going to take every measure to stop the contamination from happening as much as possible. So there's going to be fence barriers we're going to put up, so the wind won't blow the crumb rubber and others off the field. We're going to put in collection containment structures, and we're going to put these microfiber filters in our catch basins to really minimize as much as we possibly can. Okay, next, please. Now, again, another spin on this, there's a landfill out there. We know there's a landfill. We don't know the exact extent. When you build a landfill, what do? They cap it, right? They cap all these landfills. So what we are really doing, if you're trying to turn a negative into a positive, that's what you think, is we're capping the landfill. We are putting turf over the top of it. We're catching the water. We're directing it into an area that's going to be cleaned. We're going to clean it, and then we're going to discharge it. Right now, it's fair to say the water is leaching down through the ground, possibly into whatever landfill is there and what containment is there. We don't know. Grass maintenance, grasses, and believe me, if an athlete in a perfect scenario is picking grass or turf, natural versus synthetic, they're probably picking natural. That is really what turf is trying to emulate. But with natural, there are still negatives. The fertilizer, pesticides, irrigation. The one thing that I think is underplayed is just the handling of Dale staff with those chemicals, right? They handle them every day. They're going to have to use them. So there's negatives to that as well. I think it's, and the other thing that I think the turf industry kind of got caught a little bit is with recycling. I don't think they all would admit they're not doing what they should be. I think with all of this noise around recycling, every one of them has got a major initiative on how they're going to recycle. And I would bet you that by the time this turf needs to be redone, they will be recycling. I've interviewed multiple firms, and they said it's less expensive to recycle than it is to pay to get it into a landfill. They just got to get there. So, and a lot of them are not there yet, but they're going there. They're listening. So I'll let Dale close.
And just in closing, we just want to remind that we're talking about Title IX and giving the same opportunity to our female athletes. We know that we have limited campus space. We have a phenomenal location, upgraded our facilities. We want to give that same opportunity to our outdoor facilities as well. We know that this is going to create that domino effect that I talked about earlier. We're going to be able to have 423 additional events. And when we talk about sustainability or sustainable, not only on the environment are we concerned about, but we're also looking at the cost long terms. We would love to be able to put in, $200,000, $300,000 each year in our budget to be able to maintain natural grass. We know that is the ideal preferred way. However, based on limited campus space and budget, we can't do that. And then also making sure that when we talk about safety, that we're providing a safe and consistent surface for our athletes on a day in, day out opportunity. So with that, thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any questions for the applicant? Lisa?
Yes. I have a couple of questions and observations. First, I'm sorry, could you go back to the podium? I saw the presentation that you gave, or a version of it, for the school board in January, and then I saw the school board's discussion in February. And I have a couple of things I want to say about your presentation just now. It seems very much like a sales pitch for artificial turf. It just does. Even to the point of, denigrating the way that lawns are cared for right now. If I have a choice, I'll take the devil I know versus the devil I don't know. PFAS. Is there no PFAS in any of the artificial turf products that might be considered for the high school? I'm not talking about just the blades, I'm talking about the backing, any of the substrate, anything.
A couple of things. I think to respond to your comment, Point of Beginning is not pro grass, pro synthetic or pro natural grass. We just know that our client is, with the limited space that they have, it's a good solution for them. So I'm just trying to bring up that side of the ledger on some of the things that are, positive, right? So I'm not trying to sell it. I don't have we're getting paid no more dollars one way or the other. Just trying to,
Okay.
As far as PFAS and turf, I think it is in turf. I think you'll find it. I don't think these turf vendors can say that it's not there. But all the interviews that we've done, they've talked about the 30, right? The ones that were the really bad part of that family.
And I'm going to stop you there because first of all, that's anecdotal. And second, the only reason that the EPA is not regulating the thousands of different PFAS and related chemicals is because they are woefully behind. Because as it started in 2013, state of Michigan was out in front. They actually regulated PFAS in their water in 2018. And I had the pleasure of working with Michigan and a coalition of Great Lakes states on this topic. They will wind up regulating as many as they can. But when you can imagine, when you have thousands of different chemicals, it's very difficult. So I would really encourage you not to try to minimize the effect of PFAS or the presence of it in the turf, because that is just insulting. It's a problem. The council raised this as a problem to the school district back in July when we had a presentation on the condition of the fields. And we said at the time, we're very concerned about PFAS, about microplastics, about heat and the impact it will have on the athletes. And the whole Title IX thing, I totally appreciate that. Can you tell me how many of the events that we may have, we won't, it's not we will have them, we may have them, because what you're not factoring in, I don't think, is sometimes in March, it's just too cold or snowy. The presentation to the school board talked about having to build in costs for snowplow work, removing snow from the fields. Okay, is it going to be icy? How does that contribute to things? In November gets blustery and awful. So I don't like hearing we will have this, or the school district will have this many more events, because you cannot guarantee that. Also, in the summertime, where I assume some of those events, it would take place in the summer, what about the heat effect? You kind of minimize that by saying on the ends in March and November, it's going to be a good thing. But what about in the middle of summer when it's not a good thing and field temperatures get up into well over 100? So I feel like, again, it sounds like we're being pressed to doing this. I will say this does not resemble any site plan review presentation that we've had before. I don't appreciate the sales pitch, and I really think if you go back and look at the slides you showed the school district, most of the new events that will be made possible, if you take out PE, most of the new events are still for the boys. Even the softball field, most of the new events will be for boys teams, not for girls teams. So I don't like that the Title IX issue is being used as a selling point. It's wonderful. I'm thrilled that the girls will have their own field, but the girls' field will be used more by the boys than it will by the girls.
There's a lot there to unpack. I don't know if I could answer any questions, but again, as we've tried to study this on both sides, right? And we're not trying to underplay chemicals and PFAS and microfibers. We're just trying to, and like you said, if the EPA and these groups are woefully behind, does that mean we should just react to that to saying they're bad until the facts are out in front?
Yes.
I'm
Yes,
saying
that is
is that
exactly, no, that is exactly what you do. There is no safe PFAS. That's the whole point. And if it's in the dirt, do you know how it got there? From contamination. So it's not a naturally occurring substance. None of them are, and they are all bad for you.
And as far as the boys and girls and use, I can't, and I don't know, it's hard to respond to how that use would happen and who would be using it. But I'm assuming that it would be used, as needed. So.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions? Randy?
Yeah, I just, Lisa, obviously you feel very strongly about this issue. I just want to maybe take an alternative look at it. Not that I am for the artificial turf or for grass, either way. To me, those are issues that are really seem outside of, certainly my expertise and maybe even the scope of the Plan Commission in itself. What I would feel most comfortable with is we referred this matter to the CLC, but I don't think we referred it to Water Resources. And I think Water Resources would be really the committee that should be taking a look at this, because from what I can tell, it seems to be that we're really talking about the issues regarding infiltration and stormwater management. That's why there's been an outcry over the impervious versus pervious areas. To me, I'd like to give the high school the ability to move forward with their site plan with the understanding that they'd have to meet all the stormwater requirements and get reviewed by staff and water resources. Because it just, to me, that feels like I don't have enough information. I don't have the scientific background to understand all those things, but there are people on those committees and in our staff that I think would have a better job of doing that.
Yeah, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Bruce. I appreciate your comments. I guess the reason, well, let's go back a step. We are at this is now the site plan review, which should come after the rezoning, which should come after the flu map amendment, if those things are going to happen. So all of this is out of order and feeling kind of rushed. And I appreciate you earlier this year requesting that we not go ahead and, approve anything without first beginning with the flu map amendment. I guess in the memo that staff prepared, my attention was called to this passage. The city has the most discretion at the rezoning phase to determine whether the application for rezoning maintains the desired overall consistency of land uses, land use intensities, and land use impacts within the pertinent zoning districts. And that is what made me think the Plan Commission does have some role in influencing the land use impacts. I could be wrong. Maybe staff meant something different in that passage, but I just bring that up. But I support your suggestion to refer this to the combined WRMC and SWUB. They do have the stormwater management plan, correct? Staff?
It has been submitted, but Water Resources and SWUB with their recent combination, they had one meeting, and I believe, if I understood correctly from Eric Sorensen, his staff's the commission, they are not planning to meet in May. So I don't think that they're planning to have another meeting until June. Oh, sorry about that.
Hear that feedback?
Now it's that. The computer away.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was distracted and now I lost my
I
train
was
of
just
thought.
saying, I don't think Water Resources plans to meet in May, so I think their next meeting would not be until June.
And I'm fine with waiting until June. Again, council just rejected, for now, a request to amend the flu map, which is another thing. Some of the members of council, I'm not one of them, but some of the members are on principle opposed to amending the flu map and the comprehensive plan as a whole because it's so recent. I disagree with that. But when we rejected this proposal, we learned it's going to cost the developers, a couple $300,000 more to tweak the plans and try to fit within the space. And so it seems to me that being at the stage of already having the plans and a stormwater management plan sort of conveys a great level of confidence that the Plan Commission and the council will go forward with all of this. And I'm just wondering if the school district is not as constrained by financial decisions like that as our developers are. But if you were to make a motion, I would support your motion.
Okay.
Well, let me add that the recommendation from staff is to defer this until after item number 1 on the agenda, well, now 2, is done.
And that does make sense. And Lisa, you brought up a good point. And for staff, I think it's problematic for us to be grouping flu map changes, zoning changes together in one meeting in any event, and then to also lump in the site plan is another. It just feels like we're really compressing the situation. I feel for the position that the high school is in, because if they are going to move forward with improvements, there's a window of opportunity for them. So I want to try to accommodate that to the extent possible. If we take action on these items tonight, I wouldn't want that to be seen as a general method of operation, though. I think it would be better for us to take things in the proper order. But in any event, I think we should wait to hold off on this matter until we hear and cover items 1 and 2.
We can table the motion, or table the discussion until after.
Commissioner Bruce, you're saying a future meeting.
Well, let's cover 1 and 2 tonight. Let's cover 1 and 2 tonight. And if we feel comfortable with item 3 this evening, then I would move forward with that as well.
I would move to defer consideration of the site plan until our next meeting. And let me see. Abby, can we ask that WRMC hold a May meeting?
Yeah.
I mean, they may not be scheduling a meeting because they feel like they don't have enough stuff.
Can you,
Well, let's make the motion, then we can do the discussion. So your motion again?
I move to defer consideration of the site plan review for the Middleton High School baseball/softball field projects, PC 2668 until if we want the WRMC, it would be the 28th of May.
Well, after they have met.
Do we have a second?
Commissioner Bruce will second.
Further discussion?
just
Yes.
a clarifying question. Is the item that's being referred to Water Resources just the stormwater management plan for the development, which is always reviewed as part of site plan review?
No, and that'll be a separate motion.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, item 1, now 2, is a future land use map designation for the property north of 2100 Bristol, which is the Middleton High School. And
It's someone on.
Can we just ask everyone to mute who's online?
She's
I
able to.
turned the speakers down a bit, so if anybody in the audience. It's not working. Okay. Hopefully we're good.
okay. Well, staff, do you have any comments on this one?
On site plan review?
On number 1?
Oh,
We're back, because we're done with the site
Okay.
review.
well, on the flu map amendment, I prepared a staff report, which is included in your packet that covers, all 3 agenda items.
I was there.
It's on page.
Is that the options?
Yes, it includes a description of the process, because there were some questions during both of the public hearings that we held at the last meeting about the process that the city followed in reviewing this application. And Mark Opitz, as zoning administrator, and I met with our city attorney, Matt Fleming. We had previously had some calls with Matt about how to handle the application, but we had a full meeting and we went over all of the steps that the city took to process the application. And Matt agreed with the city's steps that were taken, with the city staff, but noted, another idea, which is reflected in the staff report under options for plan commission consideration. And that is that what we were proposing, was either support the project as proposed, or if there are concerns, if there are valid land use concerns related to the use of artificial turf, that could be a contingency of approval for institutional zoning, that it would be limited to natural grass fields. That was something that we had written in the staff report for the last meeting. And Matt said, yes, I agree, that is one path. But he also proposed the other option, which we had previously discussed with representatives of the school district, which is to rezone the property to Parks and Rec. The benefit of that would be that it would not require an amendment to the flu map. It would be limited to 25% impervious, but it would not, it would be a cleaner option to resolve the concerns that had been raised by some commission members, in that it would not open the door to several other types of land uses, which I don't think the school district would want to pursue, and I don't think that the city would necessarily support, because institutional has several other types of land uses that would be permitted. And so that's where option 3 in the report came from, which is the Parks and Rec zoning. The downside of Parks and Rec, of course, is that if that were the direction to the school board, then there would have to be another public hearing. It would delay the process. I did want to mention one more comment, which is related to both items 1 and 2, the flu and the rezoning, is that at the last meeting, we heard comments from many residents as part of the public hearing, as well as some organizations. And there was only one entity that expressed concern with rezoning the property altogether, and that was the Friends of Pheasant Branch Conservancy. And I reached out to Hans Hilbert as a representative of the Friends to clarify their position, because they had stated that they were not concerned about the existing use of the land, but they did not support rezoning in any way, even if there were limitations placed on the institutional zoning. And Hans said that the Friends Board would be open to a rezoning to Parks and Recreation, with a condition that impervious surface limits are not allowed to be exceeded through stormwater engineering practices. In other words, they support maintaining at least 75% natural ground cover and no change to the flu map. I think I guess the only other thing that I would mention, which I emailed out to the Plan Commission earlier this afternoon, that Conservancy Lands Commission met last night to fulfill the other referral that had been made previously to a city committee, and they recommended rezoning the parcel to Parks and Rec. And that was all I had.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that limits, if they go Park Rec, that limits it to 25% impervious,
That's correct.
which means they couldn't do a whole field with turf.
They could not.
Okay. So I assume you've gone through this at the last meeting, the FLU issue, and we delayed it till this meeting. And I'm looking at the commissioners, wondering if anybody's thought about this in the meantime, and do you want to make a motion?
I want to just, if I could, I'm not sure I'm ready to make a motion, but I want to just explain kind of my thought process to where I'm at right now. To me, the general use of the property for high school and its related activities it's been that way. It's it's going to continue to be that way. To have one zoning classification for that, for their use makes sense to me. In other words, it seems to me like having institutional for that piece, as the rest of the property is institutional, the rest of the high school use is institutional, just makes sense in terms of a zoning district. Whether like I said before, I don't, if it turns out that water resources and other committees are hesitant or find a problem with the turf, then I think we'd still use the institutional use, but put limits as to how that field could be used. So that's kind of where I stand right now in terms of the zoning, and because if we're going to move towards that institutional zoning, we'll have to make a change in the flu map. So.
I would agree with Commissioner Bruce that I feel that having uniform zoning in the whole high school area would be ideal. I also I do not feel comfortable putting restrictions on the institutional zoning that are already not prohibited by ordinance. There's nothing in the ordinance that prohibits artificial turf on institutional. And I really do feel that if we would go that way and put a restriction, is there something that the school district would come back at us and say, well, wait a second, this ordinance does not prohibit this use or this, surface. So, is that going to kind of come back and, bite us in the rear end if we're not careful with that? In regards, I know that institutional does allow more usage, but this is city-owned land that is leased to the school district, and the city and the school district, if the school district wants to use it for something else, we can negotiate that with the lease agreements that we have with them. I also feel that there's opportunities here. We have a shortage of space for teams, for organized sports in the city. As somebody who represents the Parks, Rec, and Forestry Commission, I'm fully aware of that we're always needing space for our children to participate in sports. And I think regardless of what direction this goes, this would be a golden opportunity to have the conversation with the school district to offer up some of that space that's on the city-owned land, to offer some recreational programming during the summer. I mean, and we can talk about the artificial versus natural turf, at the meeting this comes back to, but there's a lot of opportunity here, but I really do not feel comfortable putting any kind of stipulations on it if it's already not prohibited by ordinance.
Other discussion?
I'm in agreement with that as well.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree that we shouldn't put special restrictions. I could support the parks, the PR designation as recommended by Conservancy Lands and also the Friends of Pheasant Branch, but I would not support imposing a 75% natural grass requirement, which is what the Friends had suggested, because I do think the whole point of going through the zoning code update that we did is to establish some guidelines for people, requirements, and we need to stick with them. A question for my colleague, who's the chair of the Parks, the PRFC, is the Parks Department considering artificial turf for any of our new parks?
Not that I'm aware of, but there is a playground that does have artificial turf on it.
Right. No, I understand
So
that, but
it does exist in our park system,
right.
but we also don't have any parks being planned right now. So,
Right, but there will be 3 in my district alone with the new developments, and I don't think there'd be support. But I just can't imagine that as a city, we're going to go in that direction for our parks, and our parks are as important as our athletic field. Question for Abby about the process. So would the parcel still be divided for zoning purposes? Because that was another.
Yes, it would still be divided by the parcel line. but the impervious surface calculations would be based on the part of the parcel that would be rezoned by the legal description. So it's a little complicated. We ran that one by Matt Fleming as well. And it would be based on not the entirety of the parcel that includes the creek corridor, but only the portion that would be rezoned.
I do like that. Would the if let's say we go in the direction of PR, would the district need to submit a new zoning application for us to schedule a hearing for a rezoning?
I think we could schedule it administratively, but we would still need to issue a class 2 notice in the newspaper, and we would still need the sign on the property for 21 days. So we would be scheduling it for a month out.
Okay, but I guess where I'm headed is we can't, as a body, approve a rezoning to a district that they did not request, is what I'm asking. They didn't ask for PR, they asked for institutional. So we are not at liberty to say, we'll give you PR.
Well, the city could be the applicant to apply to rezone the property, but we would, regardless of the option that the Plan Commission decided to take, we would still need to hold another public hearing.
Sure, no, I get that, but if I'm not explaining this very well, what I'm wondering, like, if we were tonight to say, we'll approve the rezoning to PR, and we need to schedule a hearing, well, we couldn't do it. We have to schedule the hearing first.
I think it would be better to direct the applicant to pursue PR zoning, and then assuming that the applicant agreed via email or whatever it is with staff within the next 24-ish hours prior to the newspaper's deadline, which is Thursday, we would publish the notice.
And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, is there something that says until you get that application, you can't submit a hearing notice? And then my final question, is this properly before us? Because, and I know the staff memo said that city staff determined that it was, and I assume Matt Fleming was part of that. But the section of the zoning code that was referred to talks about the authorized agent of the owners. And I didn't know if that meant authorized to take this action or just we've got an agreement with them to use the land.
So we interpreted it as authorized by the owner to submit the application on behalf of the owner. And we discussed that with Matt Fleming. He raised no concerns, and he thought that that was a reasonable position to take given the historic land use on the property, with it being used for baseball fields for over 50 years, and based on the active lease agreement that we have that says that they can use the land for recreational purposes.
I would say as a council member, I would have expected there to be some sort of council action to authorize. And I say that because at our last meeting or whenever the hearing was, there was a not very veiled threat to sue us over rezoning of our own property, which seemed a little forceful. And I'm just wondering, I don't feel like the city has authorized the school district to do this until the city, until council acts, but that could just be me.
Okay, yes.
I think this is working. I just want to share that based on that comment that was made at the last meeting, I did have a discussion with the president of the school board, and she wanted to make sure that you all know that that is a person that spoke on behalf of himself and not on behalf of the board, and that the board was, yes. So please know that the school board appreciates what we do, and please do not consider that the school board's feelings.
Thank you for that clarification, Mayor.
Yeah, I'd also like to say that, we have a long history of working well between the city and the school board. And I'll throw the fire department district in there too. it's always worked very well, and I hope it continues that way. You know, as I've looked at this, not as long as you, the other people on the commission here have looked at this, but I come back to usage. Having mowed the soccer fields at Yahara for a number of years, trying to get field play there and watching for, the goal usage. Goals get murdered when it comes to grass fields because they're torn up by the time one game is over. And if it's wet, forget it, half a game. And so your fields don't get use when that happens because you can't play in the mud unless you're football. I mean, I suppose you could do that. So I'm supportive of more usage for these fields. And if synthetic turf is the way to do that, we've got to find a way to make that happen. And if it sounds like there's already been a lot of work done in trying to capture runoff and capture the not the PFAS, no, but the what is it, turf bites? What is it? Yeah, microplastics. Thank you. I'm not that well schooled on the terminology yet. But that's my consideration. The biggest consideration is school usage, hours of usage, and making sure that our athletes have the place to train because there isn't enough room here. And I know that just trying to find soccer fields back in the day. So it's getting better, but it needs more. That's my 2 cents. Anybody else? Is there a motion out of all that?
I'll make the option 3 motion. I move that we deny, Abby, do we deny it or recommend that the council deny it?
I think you would be recommending that the council deny it.
Thank you. I move that we recommend that the council deny the comprehensive plan flu map amendment and that the plan commission direct the applicant to request a rezoning of the single parcel in question to PR or Parks and Recreation.
Discussion?
Need a second.
Second.
Summers will second.
Okay, well, I'm going to say right off the top, Parks and Rec isn't the place to do it. It's institutional. And if we make it Parks and Rec, that limits them to 25% impervious. And that doesn't work for them. So I'm against that.
I'm against that as well.
Discussion.
I think Chris Parks said something.
No.
I just said I agree. I'm against that as well. I would be more conservative option 1.
Okay, thank you.
Should we call the?
Yep, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Nay.
Commissioner Harp, did you vote on that?
I did. I said nay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, 4-2. Motion fails 4-2.
I'd like to make a alternative motion, which is option 2 with, but striking the requirement for the use of grass fields. So recommending approval of the comprehensive plan, future land use map amendment by adoption of resolution 2024-17 and recommend approval of the request for rezoning to institutional effect upon the district amending its lease with the city to prohibit any other permitted or conditional uses allowed in institutional except for outdoor open space, institutional, passive outdoor recreation, active outdoor recreation, and community garden, and with issuance of formal findings of fact. If when I looked at the requirements in section 10.10.30.
Is this part of your motion, Randy?
Yeah, this is part of my motion.
Okay.
Parent 4, parent B, items 1, 2, and 4 certainly would fit well in terms of those findings of fact.
Is there a second?
Harple second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
What, we need discussion.
Okay.
Can we bring up the numbers you cited?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised it hasn't, oh, I see. I hit a link and it didn't. Okay. I'm already there, but it's not
We're
on the
not
screen.
You got it, Mark? I was there too, but are you?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm still getting there. So if you're already there, you're faster than I am. Go ahead.
Well, I hit the link in your memo, but it didn't.
Oh, okay, okay.
That's why it didn't work. So I have to just share my screen here. Are you? Oh, okay.
Okay, discussion. Lisa?
I'm still waiting for it to come up. I want to see what because that was a really long, I'll pay good money to hear you repeat that motion. But it's the 10, okay. And which ones were you singling out?
Paragraph 4, subparagraph B, 1, 2, and 4, and 3 as well, obviously, because we're taking action on the comprehensive plan. So 1, 2, 3, and 4.
And what about those 4 in particular? Because it seems to me like under this section, the zoning administrator needs to prepare a report with all 5 of these. But I guess
I don't know I don't know if, I did not understand it that way. What I understood was that we had to find some findings of fact as to why why this zoning was appropriate, and that we could evaluate it based on these things. Certainly 1 through 4 meet those requirements. I didn't go further into looking at 5 and 6, but certainly 1 through 4. And I don't know if all of them have to be addressed or not. That's a good question for staff.
I would question whether the proposed use, and this is where we get into, does it matter? Do we consider the material at this time? Because I don't think complies with the comprehensive plan is something that this proposal does in terms of, because there are so many things about protecting water.
Right. And yeah, and I can't disagree at this point with that. But to me, in terms of the land use amendment and the zoning district, I don't think we're talking about the specifics of the field surface.
Other discussion?
This is the flu map amendment and not the rezoning.
That is correct. That is correct. Yes.
The motion that was made took items 1 and 2 on the agenda. So it addressed the flu map and the recommending approval of the request for rezoning.
Yes. Thank you.
Everybody straight on that?
Is that proper? I guess I'm wondering, because the rezoning is contingent upon the flu map being changed.
I was looking at the options for plan commission consideration in the packet and went through and I took option 2 with a slight amendment. We could break it down and just do the flu map and then do the zoning. That would be fine. That makes more sense. I agree.
Which one do you want to take first?
We'll take the flu map amendment and would recommend approval of the comprehensive plan future land use map amendment by adoption of resolution 2024-17.
Okay.
It's on the screen.
Any discussion on that? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No. 5-1 with Heniro opposed.
Aaron, you were,
I was an aye.
okay.
Just for the purpose of the minutes, the previous motion, you were amending your own motion.
I was amending my own
Commissioner Bruce.
motion, yes.
So we'll just have the motion reflect this per item 1. Okay.
Also clarification that the amendment to the future land use map was to, well, I guess we were approving the resolution 24/7. That explains what the change, specific change to the fleet map was.
Okay. So do we need to move on to item 2, or did we cover that?
Still, I think now we'd have to talk about the rezoning or make a motion relative to the rezoning.
The second part, okay.
So you're on this item now, Mayor, or I'm sorry, Chair. Mayor Kurt, I'm so used to calling that.
It happens.
Sorry.
So, I'm sorry, Mark. So what were you saying to start with?
So you're on item 2 now.
Yeah.
Moving on to item 2.
Right. Well, since we've covered a lot of this, Randy, you want to make a motion on this, or anybody else?
Go back to page 19.
I'm sorry, did you?
The motions in the packet.
Just to note, I agree with Alder Heniro that that should include a contingency for the council approving the flu map amendment. That should be added as well.
Okay.
And whoever makes the motion, it would be nice to specifically mention that the part of the parcel, I don't know how to refer to it, but I guess the legal description.
Isn't this application only subject to that one parcel? Or the parcel described in the application?
Yes, it's not a separate subdivided parcel, but there is a legal description in the packet. And when we transmit this to the common council, we would include an ordinance that would include the legal description. So that would be added to the packet for the council's consideration.
But it's labeled parcel 2 for now on the map. Correct? I'm on page 21.
You want me to go to page 21?
Yep, keep going down. See,
Yes,
Parcel
that's correct. Parcel 2.
So I'll try to make a motion here.
I'm trying to type it too to help you and then display it on the screen.
Thank
That's
you.
my goal.
And
So
Thank you.
may I
Thank
ask
you.
what happened to the referral to WRMC?
The referral to we can do the didn't we do that already?
No,
The site plan was referred to
Yeah.
WRMC.
Yeah.
I don't think we actually had a motion for that, and the CLC and the sustainability got the rezoning request for.
You can do that motion separately.
Yeah.
And it should be.
Oh, but that's what I'm asking. Is it the site plan or the rezoning request that you were earlier talking about referring?
To me, it was the site plan. Yeah.
And we'll need a motion for that.
At that time. Yeah. Okay. But are we on item number 2
Continue what you
now?
were doing, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Let me see if I can.
I almost
do
have
this.
it ready here based on what you've been saying.
Perfect.
I just have to figure out how to share this.
They'll print it off and hand it out.
There we go. Look. So I think this is what you were saying earlier before you
Yes.
struck the rest,
Mhm.
so I'll let you work with it from here.
Okay, I move to recommend approval of the request for rezoning to institutional for parcel 2 on the map. Effective upon district amending its lease with the city to prohibit any other permitted or conditional uses allowed in institutional, except for outdoor open space institutional, passive outdoor recreation, active outdoor recreation, and community garden, and with issuance of formal findings of fact.
The contingency for council approval.
Yes, and having a contingency for the common council approval of the flu map.
Is there a second?
Adams will second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-2. Okay. Does anybody know where we are now?
Are we back to item number 3? You tabled the discussion on item number 3. Is that right?
Can we make a motion on that already?
No. Because there was no motion because it wasn't in order, so you went back to
Okay.
item 1.
Okay. Well, then
Defer this until the May 28th meeting, but we didn't make the referral.
I think that's
I'm
correct.
sorry, you're right. Yeah,
I think that's correct.
my apologies.
So, for item number 3, the site plan review, if I understand correctly, we referred it to which meeting date is that?
We deferred it until our May 28th meeting.
May
to
28th
give
meeting?
the new committee a chance to meet. And so a motion maybe would direct them to respond in time for our May 28th meeting, because they might schedule a
Special
special
meeting.
meeting.
Yeah.
Yep.
And help me out, because I always called it water resources. Is it not called water resources anymore?
Some of it now. I think it's the water resources. It's been merged. Although I don't know if it's been changed yet. Just stop. I don't remember the new name. Mayor, do you? I don't think it.
Okay, can we use water resources?
Yeah.
Okay, so as pertaining to agenda item number 3, the site plan review for the Middleton High School baseball softball fields project. I make a motion to defer action on that until our May 28th meeting, and to refer the site plan and the use of the site plan and the evaluation of the turf field and grass field options to water resources prior to that May 28th meeting.
okay, is there a second?
Just for clarification for the minutes, I think there was a motion made earlier to defer consideration to May 23rd, and there was a seconded by Commissioner Bruce. But I don't know I think you voted on that too. I didn't write down whether there was a vote. Commissioner or Mayor, God.
Deep breath.
I do recall a motion to defer that. That's why I was wondering. Okay,
I would leave the motion that Commissioner Bruce made just in case. If we have 2 motions that said the same thing, it's not a problem, but if we.
Okay, was there a
I will,
second?
I will second that.
Okay, motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, that moves us on to item 4. Site plan review for the Middleton High School tennis courts. Anybody here from the school district want to talk about that?
Good evening, Lindsay Beeman, project manager with Point of Beginning.
Okay, anybody have questions for Lindsay?
Nope, no presentation.
Could you explain to us just the extent of the enlargement of the current, from the current tennis courts to what's being proposed?
Sure. So the existing 8 tennis courts that there are, what we did to expand that is we added in walkways, 20-foot wide walkways that run north and south, and then east and west. So that's basically what expanded the footprint. So it's expanding to the east a little bit and then up to the north.
20 feet in each direction, or?
Yep. So those pathways you can see
Yep.
right there, we have a 20-foot wide pathway running north and south, and then also east and west.
Okay. Those aren't there currently.
They are not.
I have to say that was a good ad.
Yeah, for viewing and fans and
Yeah.
So in which direction is the border or the boundary changing?
so I believe the boundary is changing on the north and east ends. So it is eating into the wood line on the northeast a little bit. That is where we're installing our gravity retaining wall.
This part of the environmental corridor, Mark, do you know?
I can answer that. This is part of the environmental corridor. And I had noted in my staff report that I had reached out to CARPC to find out whether this project would be impacted by the environmental corridor and what the process would be to remove the environmental corridor from this location if it's required, and if it would be administrative review or if there would be additional steps involved with the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission. And I just heard back from Melissa Michaud today. She's the CARPC Environmental Resources Planner who handles the environmental corridors. And she said that it would really be up to the city to determine whether or not to remove this from the environmental corridor. I shared the plans with her that showed all the details of what was being proposed. And she said that because it's a reconstruction project and there are no environmentally sensitive elements, it is permissible to proceed with reconstruction within the environmental corridor because tennis courts are commonly included in public parks and public parks are commonly covered by environmental corridors. So CARPC does not have any concerns, and it would be up to the city to decide whether or not the land should be removed, but it would not necessitate being removed from the environmental corridor.
But I mean, the project could go forward and not remove.
Yes.
They would just have to do additional things like preserve, I forget what the percentage is. It is section, so I'm sorry, section 10-285 of the zoning code would apply.
Mark, can you pull that up, please?
Yes. Oh, she's got it.
So on the next page, I'm looking at item 7. Keep going. One of the things is tree cutting and shrubbery clearing would be limited, except as permitted under a conditional use permit. Lands lying within the EC district shall not be clear cut of trees, shrubbery, or underbrush, and no more than 10% of the natural vegetation shall be removed from a parcel. I would think that this parcel may be big enough for that to be something that, it's a different 7. I'm sorry.
Okay, I
A
was
different 7.
really
It's-
confused. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Oh, there it is. Yep. And then there is a variance option available. So I'd be more in favor of at least seeing whether the district can do this without, or in compliance with this section of the zoning code. I'm very mindful of the appearance of the city not respecting environmental corridors. I think it's just an appearance, but it's there. And I do think this project, I think it should be feasible, or it could be feasible to do it under these restrictions.
Do you have any comments on that, Lindsay?
I think the only tree cutting or shrubbery clearing would be in that northeast corner. Otherwise, I think it's pretty much the existing footprint and we're minimizing impacting any trees. But we can definitely take a look at that and consider.
I appreciate that. And then do you have lighting? So how will the lighting affect the neighbors and wildlife?
So with that, we're actually not proposing lighting with this plan. It's for future. We're hoping to install conduits for future lighting. So that, I think that would be a future review. We did include that within our packet. We work with a sports vendor. They provided photometric plans, but we don't have electrical communication plans put together for that yet.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion.
No motion yet, no. And
Should have
just
started with one.
the lighting, just to note that if the school district decides to proceed with the lighting, that would require a conditional use permit, and there's also a buffer requirement between the tennis courts and the residential property to the south. So that's why Lindsay and I discussed, and that's when she informed me that they weren't intending to install any lighting at this time.
So do we need to specify that in the motion?
I would recommend it, and I have that currently listed as item number 1. But I would, just based on the discussion, I'm hearing that maybe we should add a new one that would say it meets the environmental corridor requirements for CARPC and the city zoning ordinance, and then renumber the following through 7.
So who's got that captured? Mark?
I was waiting for her to show it.
Meets the environmental corridor requirements for the city's environmental
For
corridor.
CARPC and the city zoning ordinance.
I would question why CARPC is in there. It seems like they defer to us. They would change it for us if we asked. So I think our zoning requirements are the preeminent ones.
So it meets the city's environmental corridor requirements. Keep it simple.
Section.
Section.
You don't.
You'll find it.
It's 10-85.
I thought there was a specific, I thought you meant a specific reference in that section.
Okay, so who wants to put their name on that motion?
Mark, are you going to show us the motion?
Eventually. I'm gonna have to grab the one that's on the screen just a second.
Okay.
Is that a finding that it meets the city's requirements? It's not a contingency? Thing, or is that, Abby, what were you suggesting?
I was suggesting that it be a contingency.
Meets the, okay.
And
like that.
I'll try. Almost, okay. So I will move approval of the site plan review for the Middleton High School tennis courts at 2100 Bristol Street, PC 2668, contingent upon the following. It meets the it meets the requirements of section 10 to 85 of our zoning code. 2, lighting is not approved at this time. 3, approval of the access and site layout by public safety, meaning fire, EMS, and police. 4, verification that the landscaping points requirements are met. Use them out, Mark.
Kind of help you.
I was doing it.
I know, but
No landscaping was submitted, but it appears that the points requirements are met with the existing landscaping. 5, city engineer approval of the stormwater management plan. 6, resolution of engineering staff comments and recommendations indicated in the plan set. And I'm going to say provision of bicycle parking spaces on site instead of staff recommends.
Oh, yep.
The motion being complete, I'll ask for a second.
Summers will second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there anybody all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, on to item 5. Recommendation to the Capital Area Regional Plan Commission to amend the environmental corridor for Quarry State Park and the city parking lot on Terrace Avenue.
Give me a moment. I think I closed my, no, here it is.
I'm prepared to make a motion. A simple one.
Yep.
I move that we direct staff to work with CARPC to remove the Quarry Skate Park and city parking lot on Terrace Avenue from the environmental corridor period.
Is there a second?
A second.
Discussion?
I would just note that what we have is a skate park and a parking lot that were built, I don't know when, but it's ridiculous for these parcels to still be in an environmental corridor when they're completely paved. So this makes sense.
Other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, item 6, the concept review, general development plan amendment and corporate boundary adjustment for community of Bishops Bay.
This item is before you tonight. The applicants are here, Terrence Wall, and then at the mic is Jake Buns. Turn it over to you and I'll pull up your.
Yeah, that would be great. If you could go to third or fourth page of that plan set. So yeah, we're here today on behalf of the community of Bishops Bay. We had proposed an amendment to the GIP in Westport a while ago. Talked with staff about it a number of times, both Middleton and Westport staff, and then recently last month went to the Joint Zoning Committee meeting for this GIP amendment of the Westport side of Bishops Bay and a corporate boundary line change. So to give you an overview, obviously you guys are familiar with the community of Bishops Bay, but it's 750 acre master plan community. About 2/3 to 3/4 of it right now is in the city of Middleton, and 1/3 to 1/4 is in the town of Westport. 7 distinct neighborhoods across the community. And what we're doing here is we're looking to, or I should say, to even step back even further, 7 phases or 6 phases of the development have already been built, 4 of which are in the Middleton side, so that's the back 9 neighborhood off of Highway Q. 2 of which, phase 5 and phase 6, are on the Westport side of County Highway M, across from Governor Nelson State Park. And then phase 7 is actually under construction right now, and that's just right next to phase 5 and phase 6. The impetus for the Westport GIP amendment was basically market feedback on what lots were selling on the Westport side and what lots weren't selling. In Westport, phase 5, 6, and 7. 7's under construction, 5 and 6 are built. Phase 5 was 86 lots. It was finished in 2018. They're Hamlet style lots. They're anywhere from a quarter of an acre, maybe the biggest one's probably a third of an acre. So smaller lots, tighter, more dense neighborhood. That was built in 2018. Like I mentioned, we still have probably 15 or 16 that have not been sold yet. So that's been a kind of a slow run up to getting that phase all sold out. Phase 6, we changed the plan with the development a little bit. There was a lot of land along the Dane County Wildlife Prairie area and the Bishops Bay Golf Course. So a little bit larger luxury lots, golf course lots, prairie lots, park lots that were probably anywhere from half an acre all the way up to an acre. Those lots, before we even recorded a plat, were about 50% sold out. And I think we have 2 remaining of the 44 that were platted. And then phase 7 we're working on right now, it's under construction. We took it another step further from phase 6, more golf course lots, more prairie lots, larger, anywhere from half an acre to almost 2 acre lots. And there's 44 of them, 43 or 44 of them, I believe, in phase 7. And we are still under construction. We're working on getting the plat recorded now, and we already have about a third of them sold. So just keeping all that in mind and given those what the market is looking for with these Bishops Bay lots and what Westport is seeking on their side of the community Bishops Bay, which is larger lots, less density, more open area, all that good stuff. That's what culminated in this Westport GIP amendment, which is to reduce the density of the lots in the Westport area, and get rid of the Hamlet style lots, the third of an acre, quarter acre lots, and swap those out with half acre, 3/4 acre lots in phases, what will be phase 8, 9, and 10. Also, as part of the GIP amendment, a few of the changes, so on that's just background for you guys. A few of the changes we made on the screen here. So on the left of the screen, it's showing what's the current approved GIP in Westport. On the right is showing the proposed GIP amendment. So the most noticeable difference is the corporate boundary line change. There's a red line, yeah, Mark's mouse is on it right there. There's a red line going through the site right now. I don't know the background on why that was chosen. Mark's spoken to it before, but it seems arbitrary from our end. We don't exactly know why the boundary line is that interesting shape. But the proposed GIP amendment would shift the corporate boundary line to the west, detaching about 108.8 acres from the city of Middleton. It's straight into Westport. It straightens out that corporate boundary line. It incorporates the green parcel on the left is the Solas Natural Burial Cemetery, which is actually under construction right now. But it straightens out that line. And then the other thing it does is the current boundary line actually runs along Onken Road at an angle. So on the east side of Onken Road, it's say on the north side of the road, and on the west side of Onken Road, it's on the south side of the road. So this corporate boundary line change would also incorporate straightening that out to pull Onken Road all into Westport. Another large change that's a part of this GIP amendment is shifting what was planned in the master plan to have multifamily right along the golf course. Based on feedback from Westport staff, Joint Zoning Committee, and a few other parties and people, we decided to shift the multifamily along the golf course to along Onken Road and keep its access and exit off of Onken Road, keep the traffic out of the neighborhood, and also maintain single-family houses along the golf course, which was a desire of the town, some residents, and then the country club as well, Bishop Bay Country Club. There's a few additional civic uses and commerce sites added to the proposed GIP amendment. Yeah, the one that Mark's mouse is on right now, we're looking at potentially putting in a recreational facility and potentially some storage units there. To the right of that, the green area, we have a school user that's interested in that site. So a private school user. And then there's more civic uses on the far right of the screen. So from my understanding, and I'll let Mark chime in if he sees there's need for it, Joint Zoning Committee, Middleton and Westport looked at this and they gave us good comments on the GIP amendment and the corporate boundary line shift, but Westport was, for the most part, comfortable with this corporate boundary line shift, but they didn't, as good neighbors, they didn't want to proceed making any decisions on this without Middleton's input with this shift. And so their recommendation and Mark's recommendation was to bring it in front of this body to receive your guys' input on the corporate boundary line shift. Unless I'm missing anything.
I think that's a really good summary. I would just add two things. One, the multifamily development up here, I guess the implication was that Westport supports it, but I've heard them say that they would rather see density be farther west. I think they favored it not being along the golf course, but I don't know that it would be accurate to say that all Westport officials would support it in this location either. So I just am not really contradicting you, but I'm just adding to that. That's really all I would add. And then the boundary is roughly what I feel in talking with our city engineer. This seems to be approximately following natural drainage divides that were established, that have been there all along, but that's roughly where the boundary exists today and where it's existed for a decade.
Okay.
So I'd appreciate your feedback.
Any other questions or comments for Jake?
Jake, have you, the development started off with a master plan for the entire development. Has that master plan been updated?
No, we've been taking more of a GIP by GIP, SIP by SIP approach up until this point. And I think one of the things we took out of the Joint Zoning Committee meeting was that we just because of the scale of this GIP amendment we're doing, we need a more cohesive approach to the whole master plan. So we're actually working with our engineers currently to update a master plan to show how this Westport side would interact with the Middleton side. So
I think that would be helpful. It's difficult to quite understand all the impacts without taking a look holistically. And I know there's been in the past, there's been some discussion about the provision of municipal water and providing services for water for the development. So, that master plan would probably need to have utility plan as part of that so that we have an understanding of that as well. The only other comment, I don't have a good feel for what the implications are to the city in terms of this boundary line adjustment, in terms of financial implications, tax base and that kind of thing. And I don't know if Alder Hanero, you could weigh in on that, or if you have any comments related to that.
I can't answer, I can't address your comment because I don't know the answer. My question to Jake was going to be by the city from the town in the past?
Mark?
Yes. So the entirety of Bishop's Bay that is.
Does not seem to make sense that we would have annexed property and then years later we're undoing that. Yeah.
Mayor, did you have a question, comment?
Yeah, I was not going to talk about the financial impact because I'm I'm sure our staff can share in that insight. However, I do want to point out, which would be unbeknownst to you all, one of the things we've been talking about in 2024 with the directors at the city level is when we build, what is the impact on, the services already here? So fire, police, emergency responders. And the reason I bring that up is from my best understanding, when there is a boundary that goes like this, it is challenging, especially for our police who are responding. And the reason that I am aware is that my former district at the Madison border, we have some streets that it's every other house is Madison. And so, and it's not always saying one side of the street is Madison, it's a guess. So on that side of the city, both Madison and Middleton will show up at a 911 call, and then they have to decide who's their actual, so there's actually an inefficiency. Not only are two sets showing up, but they're actually taking time to decide who has jurisdiction. So, you may not be interested in moving it because of prior reasons and, this line and discussions, but I do want you to think about that holistic approach of what is that impact when the line is not a straight line. So for that reason, I'm open to this proposed GIP amendment, understanding that 108 acres is a lot. However, it would square it up, and that would make a firm boundary for our emergency responders. So something to think about.
Other comments? Questions?
I think you bring up some good points because I could see where that would be a problem. I would just point out that perhaps the boundary line could be adjusted so that we wouldn't lose 108 acres, but could be, something that we could make better defined, but still keep within the, city boundaries. As I said, I don't understand the implications to the city. Somebody else is going to have to kind of weigh in on that. But in any event, just in terms of the plan itself, seeing a master development plan and a master utility plan, I think it would be necessary for us to move forward with this.
I think Terrence wants to comment.
To answer two of your questions, which are good questions. One is a lot of those acreage are tax exempt. So the cemetery is tax exempt, the school site be tax exempt. The recreational facility would be nonprofit. So a lot of those acres are going to be tax exempt. The big thing in terms of your financial question was the diagonal going through Onken. That was just a mistake by Beerbecker Associates when they drew the line. No one would ever do that if they knew they were doing that. So we're going to put Onken Road back into the town. So it's not a cost for the city. The town, as I understand it, right, they're applying for a
RIP grant,
yeah.
Lincoln Road. It's in dire need of reconstruction.
So it's has to do with the farmers using the road, and you can apply for a grant for that, which we could not do in the city. So the town's going to apply for a grant to rebuild Onken Road, so it wouldn't be a city cost. And then lastly, let's see here. Oh, the last question. The boundary line was required, and I don't remember if you were here back in 07 through 10 or whatever. I think you were, but we had agreed in the original approvals that it's required that we would straighten this boundary line out once we knew what the master plan would be for this area. And it was a pure guess. This line that you have now was just a pure guess. So we all knew going into this that this line would have to be straightened out. It's required of us to do that. And then lastly, we did shift, you asked about utilities, water. We did shift the Vicious Bay Parkway around a little bit so we could create a water tower site on the hill because the town has some, water needs, not in Vicious Bay, but outside of there. And this tower site could serve all of that entire side of the town. including an upgrade of some other water mains and sewer mains that are outside of Bishop's Bay. But this site would provide that. So we did that to accommodate their potential, there's no guarantee they're going to do that, but potential interest in having a water tower there, including a water testing station and a town antenna, repeater antenna for their employees. So this has been really hashed out in great detail with the town to accommodate sort of bigger picture, greater town needs than just Bishop's Bay. So those are good questions.
Anybody else? Yes, Lisa.
Thank you. Just a simple question. What exactly is the community of Bishop's Bay? Is that the developer? Is that an HOA? What does that mean?
Community of Bishop's Bay would be, I guess, I've never been asked that question
It's on the
before.
letterhead. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, the community of Bishop's Bay is the neighborhood, it's the community.
Right. No, I
yeah.
know that. But when, you started your talk by saying you're representing the community of Bishop's Bay.
So that is the actual name of the development. Have Community of Bishop's Bay HOA, which is the HOA entity. They're separate legal entities, slightly different name, but the marketing and branding is the community, because unlike a subdivision, which you just go there to sleep, the whole idea of developing this, Mark, when we went through this originally, was to have a community means you have other things. You have churches, religious facilities, parks, paths, bicycle, pedestrian paths. You have a cemetery, cradle to grave. You have schools. You have so many other things that you would have in a community, including the town center that we have planned. And that's why we call it a community rather than like a subdivision.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. So your proposal is to eliminate the small hamlet lots. And the mayor knows from sitting through so many meetings and hearings and stuff. We're always told that houses are in high demand and smaller houses are in high demand too. And I know in my district, I have District 6, and so Red Tail Ridge is going up and they don't seem to be having a difficult time selling the smaller units. So any idea why that's different? Why is this community not selling these home lots?
Yeah, we tried originally in phases 1 through 4. We had smaller lots. And we found that you're selling a lot of those to builders. Builders demand discounts. We were losing money. The cost was higher than the actual selling price. And we lost money on all the first 4 phases. Phase 5, we increased the lot to 100 by 100, so the medium-sized lots. We were still getting, builders trying to get discounts, but we were trying to market them to more consumer purchases and allow for a little bit bigger home, a little bit of higher price so we can cover all of our costs. And then phase 6 went a little larger. So phase 6 was the first phase we actually made some money, which we need seed capital. Seed capital is, profit that you use to fund the next phase. Just like a farm field, you're putting in the seed to grow the crop next year. The problem is that in Bishop's Bay, unlike Red Tail or Bell Farm, where they're sitting in an infrastructure zone where they have existing infrastructure, this is literally the hilltop. And so once we got to the hilltop, going down the other side is an enormously expensive proposition. So as we go down the other side, there has to be a lift station put down at the bottom. The sewer line has to be run the entire distance down there, a reverse force main back up. You've got water pressure issues. You've got to make sure you have water lines and water pressure and water flow. You've got a whole host of, more stormwater ponds have to be built now. So it's like starting over. So the cost of developing this development is greater than, say, Red Tail or Bell Farm. Our cost of a lot here is well over $250,000. That's the cost. That's not the price. That's the cost. And that's building and everything, all the fees we pay to the city and the town, all the, costs of infrastructure, all the soft costs like architecture, engineering. When you're building a water meter station for the city of Middleton, it costs us $300,000. If we did that in Madison, it'd be $50,000 and it would be underground because Madison's requirements are different and easier. So there are a lot of additional requirements that Middleton has that add to cost. That's just reality. And that's fine, but we have to work within that framework, and then we have to provide a price that will pay for those costs. So it is difficult because it's a slope site and it's, you're going downhill, and also well over half of our land here is open space. It's like 55 or 60% is open space. So we don't really have the density that, to, drive down the cost per lot, because what the city and the town wanted was open space. They wanted parks and recreation and paths and school sites and nonprofit sites. When we did the Lutheran church, we didn't make money on that. We took a loss on that to get the church as an amenity, right? And we'll have other religious facilities hopefully also. So sometimes we do things that are better for the whole development, but we lose money on them. But it's going to help hopefully drive demand. We try to make that up. But it is very expensive to develop this site. Yeah. Thank you.
One more question for you. Did this project receive any TIF assistance from the city? No? Okay. And then I would wonder if my colleagues who serve on the Joint Zoning Committee can comment on, I noted in the staff memo, that there was significant opposition to a paved trail
Yeah, there's a,
that would connect phases 4 and 7, because I'm thinking of your comment that this is a community.
right.
And I was looking at, is there connectivity between where the proposed apartments will now be on Unkin Road? Is that the only way people will be able to get to anything, is to leave on Unkin and come back down Bishop's Bay Parkway?
No, I'm a huge biker. I'm the one who got the bike path built on Highway M, got the county convinced to do that. I worked with the state, got them convinced to do the bike path in Governor Nelson State Park, worked with Mark, got this whole thing going around north side of Lake Mendota. So I want to have bike paths and pedestrian trails connecting everything. A lot of people out here have golf carts. So we might have some of those. And we are going to have bicycle connections, pedestrian bicycle connections from the multifamily into the amenities of the whole thing, into the town center. I want kids to be able to ride their bike to the schools. I want people to walk and ride their bikes to the church. So the whole thing is set up and designed for that. What the town wanted was, and it's really the town's idea, was to move the multifamily to Onken Road, which I'm like, wow, why didn't we think of that? It's pretty obvious that we should do that, because they wanted the traffic to go out into Onken Road from the multifamily rather than going through the whole development. That seems to make sense to me. And the country club loved it because they wanted the homes on the country club. They didn't want the multifamily on the golf course. Back to your question about the path, though. We've been trying to develop, solely at the request of the country club, a bypass route for the golf carts so that people weren't getting onto the golf course and riding the cart backwards against the play. And that is purely the request of the country club. We're trying to work with them. At the same time, when you squeeze the balloon here, it expands over here, and so the country club wanted us to go around the north. We tried to work with the neighbors, everything. The neighbors came out in great opposition against that. I totally get it. I understand. And frankly, when they said no to that, we were able to go back to the country club board and say, look, they said no to that. Okay. Which I kind of knew they were going to say no to that. So, I think they needed to hear the no, and so now we're working with the country club on an alternative route, a couple of route possibilities, and we're trying to work through that with them to come up with an alternative route solely to accommodate their interest to get carts bypassing the field of play, so to speak. And the country club already built a bypass route down the old driving range to get away from field of play. And then when you approach the tunnel over on M by the country club, they also created another alternative path so that you're not riding right along the tee box. So they've done some things themselves to accommodate that, but they want us to do something as well. And we're willing to do it. So long as it's not going to piss off all the neighbors and the residents who are there, So we're kind of like between a rock and a hard place, and it's very frustrating, to be honest with you. But we're trying to make it work. Sorry for the long explanation.
So to answer Alder Nairo's question, as far as Joint Commission representatives, there was a lot of opposition from the neighbors on the paved path. I think the largest takeaway I had from that meeting is that it wasn't part of the original plan. So people selected their lots based on having some privacy. And I think it was pretty obvious to most of them that why it could be used for many different purposes recreationally. The main purpose was golf carts and they therefore did not desire to have that traffic going through their backyard, understandably, on a regular basis. So,
Thanks.
yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
I would just, I wanted to kind of reiterate one of the comments that Alder Hanero made regarding, lot sizes. And I think I mentioned this at the meeting that you were here last, from just talking about development issues in general. We're a growing county, and land is clearly at a premium. I think we have to be really smart about how we develop the land that we have. And it's counterintuitive to me to have larger lots rather than smaller lots. I would certainly, would encourage the integration of a variety of lot sizes and different income levels into the development, and to provide as much density as is workable within the plan.
Yeah, and I would say to that, part of this request comes on behalf of Westport. It's what they're seeking is actually lower density, larger lots, more rural feel. So, we're trying to incorporate that as well. But, to your point, Randy, it's a 700-acre development. We have lots of land over on the Middleton side as well. And it's something that we can explore as different densities, different lot sizes as well over there. And it's something we're going to look at when we update the master plan as well. So,
I mean, we'd love to get more density on the town center. Opportunities on the city side, but the town is trying to keep this rural farm character.
Yeah. Yeah, you also realize that the city's also looking, desperately in need of the missing middle housing. We, some attached townhomes, some, condominium type developments and so forth. So if we can integrate that, that would be helpful.
Lost our spirit on the 5 services that big losses there. We found that just the 3-story nature is that the seniors don't want to buy it. The people who can afford it won't buy it because of the stairs, and then the people who can't really afford it can't afford it. And we got caught in COVID with the shutdown of materials, manufacturing of construction materials, everything. So everything skyrocketed in price. So, our costs went from over $300,000 to over $500,000. I can't make it work. I don't know who can, but I'm probably not the guy to do that.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that you repeat a failed concept. It's just in terms of I guess what the point I was trying to make is the density could come in multiple forms. Wouldn't have to come in just apartments. Could come in other forms as well.
Yeah, we'd like to do a senior project for seniors too, sometime. Yeah, or apartments above retail space. Yeah.
Okay, is there any other comments, questions? The recommendation from staff is just provide feedback. We ready to give them a concept review? I don't think we are. So we're done. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.
can I ask Mark, next steps for this?
One option would be
So I know
to,
it gets confusing with. Bishop
yeah, I mean, one
Pages.
option would be, you can process what you heard here. There's obviously no motion tonight, and there wasn't necessarily going to be a motion, nor is a motion binding for concept review on the city. One option would be, given the detachment issue, would be to take this to the council to get their feedback as well.
Mhm.
And that's something that our staff has talked about doing at the next council meeting. I don't know whether Alder Hanero is the representative of the council. About that, I think given that, basically what you're asking is to detach about a quarter of the area that was annexed to the city originally. And given that there are financial implications of that, potentially asking our finance team to present an analysis of that and reviewing that with the council, I think would be one step that would be worth to give you some more feedback. But Alder Hanauer, I don't know if we haven't really talked about that.
If we can refer just specifically the question of the loss or what's the term we're using?
Attachment.
The detachment, the financial implications of the detachment of 108 acres. I think that was the number. That I would make a motion to have council consider it.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion. I'd like to, do we need to, can that can that analysis be made without the master plan?
Oh,
I don't see how exactly.
yeah, this is the first I heard tonight that you're working to update the master plan, development plan, and I'm glad to hear that because that was feedback they had gotten, I think, from the Joint Zoning Committee as well. I think given the significance of this GIP amendment, if the developer wishes to get council feedback, because ultimately the council has to approve the GIP amendment and the detachment, it might be worth your while to get that feedback sooner and then see what the issues are. But I understand the limitations, Commissioner Bruce, that you're raising about, and Alder Hanauer, about, what specifically is before the council at that point. But so just reviewing the concept in general, I don't see any harm in that. And I think the policy issues involved warrant that. But if the maker of the motion is, as the maker of the motion, Alder Hanauer, you're asking to have the council focus on the financial implications.
Now go to audio/visual.
We can ask our finance team to look at.
Tap on headphone accommodation
I
and
just
turn
wanted
it on.
that is going to be a very big ask.
Now select vocal range. Then swipe it to strong. This will make your speakers sound louder when listening to music. If you have an iPhone.
I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. I didn't realize it was coming from the Zoom, or else I would have tried to mute sooner. So to study the fiscal impacts of development patterns, you have to look at both the revenue side, which is the property taxes, but then you have to look at the cost side. So if you really want a detailed and thorough analysis, it would take looking at the number of, the amount of square footage of roadway, how much salt the city's gonna have to buy, how many staff members you're gonna be putting on plows. What does that mean for brush collection? What does that mean for pipe sizing? How much revenue is the water utility bringing in compared to what is being paid in rates? It is very complicated. The city of Madison did a fiscal impacts of development study, I think it was about 15 years ago, which we referred back to still. And just in the big picture and generally speaking, multifamily housing is much more likely to cover its costs than single family housing. And as lots get larger, they typically result in less revenue to the municipality compared to the costs of service because of the amount of roadways, right. It also has a lot to do with the impact to the schools, but in this case, this whole entire community is in Wanakee schools. So I think that probably would come out of the evaluation. But I just wanted to set some realistic expectations because our staff is very small and it's a big ask to have them take a look at that.
I can make
So we need to make a realistic ask is what you're saying. And I don't know what that would be.
I think that, if we had a baseline and we said the city is getting X fewer single family, because they're going to the Westport side, and what the impact is for square footage of commercial and number of apartment units. Broadly speaking, I think our finance team could lay out some general pluses and minuses, but I don't think that they'd be able to drill down to specifics.
Property tax implications.
Just how much tax base we would lose, but not looking at the side. That would probably.
One thing you could think about it just intuitively, which I didn't mention, was the idea of making this change and putting a water tower site here is that potentially the Westport could finance that. And that would eliminate the need to create a 2-mile long water main, which is what Sean Stowski wants, coming from Red Tail all the way around down Balzer Road to this development to make another loop connection. We already have 3 loop connections. So that's like, I don't know how many,
Couple $1 million.
many millions of dollars, a lot more than a couple million, but it's a lot of money to build that 2-mile long water line. So that would be eliminated as a regional cost for Middleton because we can't pay for that. And it would be used by a lot of other properties. The water tower would eliminate that and take a big cost burden off of the city of Middleton.
Mr. Chair, if I could restate my motion and amend it to say, I move that we refer the Mark, how did I say it before?
To study the financial implications of the detachment of 180.
Study is too strong. Refer this to council to evaluate the tax implications, property tax implications of the proposed
Detachment.
detachment. Thank you. I want to say deception, but it's detachment.
And just so I understand, this is going to go to, this is being for the council to,
Yes.
okay.
You okay with it?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any more discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you for the feedback.
Yep, thanks,
you.
Jake. Thanks, Terrence. Thanks, Lambo.
I was looking for Lambo.
Okay, item 7 is a public arts presentation. Thank you for sitting through this, Meg.
I'm sure you guys all want to get home.
You have a presentation, right?
Mark,
Yes, I do.
I sent it.
Yeah, and I opened it and it's not here. I thought I saved it and it's not here.
Here, I can forward it to you.
No, I'll get it. I got it.
Go ahead, Meg.
Okay. Well, Abby asked me to present to you this evening to go over what the art committee has been working on. I have some
Actually,
slides.
just while Mark is pulling that up, Mayor Kuhn had the idea that we should make sure that all of the Plan Commission activities are keeping in mind housing needs, public arts corridors, and also ped bike transit issues and roadway planning. And so she had outlined 3 presentations that she wanted to have different people give to the Plan Commission to make sure that you're aware of some of the other work that other committees are doing. So that was how Meg was invited to speak.
So these are our existing collection, which we're looking to grow. I'm sure you're familiar with most of them, so I won't go through each and every one of them. Our goals for the arts committee are to enhance the quality of life for every resident through public art. That means supporting local artists, supporting local businesses, attracting visitors to the area. Our second goal is to complement and enrich the history and diverse character of the city. And that means to use historic sites, local materials. What else? Use the unique landscapes. Oh, I didn't add all the extra details. This is from our master plan, which you can find online. So it's all spelled out. Goal 3 is to provide learning opportunities and add value to the community schools. We'd love to have like an artist in school program at some point in time. We are working with the schools right now, so we are getting there. We have a project at the youth center right now, and we also partner with the Parks and Rec department with the summer programs, which Aaron pioneered. And then goal 4 is to engage public and provide opportunities for involvement. Some of those things that you've seen before is like when we were working on the roundabout sculpture, they included the entire community to vote on the sculpture that was going to go into the roundabout. Unfortunately, we couldn't do that because of the DOT restrictions, but hopefully we'll get to a point where we can do that again. And then for goal 5, empower the public art and design through ordinance, which we also have made headway on. So that's great news with our TIF funding. 0.5% for arts. Sorry, I should reword that. So if you go to the next slide, these are the art corridors that we kind of have highlighted that we're focusing on. So downtown is a major one. And if you keep clicking, it'll show you. So these are the projects that we have completed downtown, which you're probably familiar with a lot of them. And then you click again, sorry. I thought I was gonna have a little clicker thing. Ongoing projects downtown are Art Walk Middleton, which is our yearly art fair. We're working on the bus shelter wraps, which I think will be finished this year. Okay. And then we have several pop-up art events that are with either Parks and Rec, or we have some at Stonehorse Green. And we have opportunities in the forecast or in the future, hopefully, for more pieces downtown with, you know, if the community campus gets done, those kind of things. We'd love to put more public art throughout the downtown area. Entrances and gateways are another focus for us. So again, the bus shelters and the wraps will be placed in those areas. There's been a lot of talk about, you know, grand entrance into Middleton. I'm not sure how that will ever factor in, but something kind of like Monona, how they have the flags, you know, right off the highway, that kind of idea. I think that's pretty much it for that. Parliamentary corridor is the arts corridor, or has been designated the arts corridor. We ran into a lot of issues with that, with the DOT restrictions. But we do have the salt shed is on that corridor. Also the police station, stained glass, we consider on that corridor. So any other opportunities that we could find along that would be great. We do have an issue finding places to put art because it's either private or, like I said, the DOT restrictions. And so that kind of gets us into the next slide, I think, probably.
And
yes,
just so you know, the Bruce Company project will have a park. So I asked if they would consider hosting. So keep
Cool.
that on your radar.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to coordinate with more people. So that brings us to Parks and Trails, because we're hoping to be working with Parks and Rec more often with our 0.5% for arts program. And we just met with Kylie last week to talk about some potential locations for more pieces of art at trailheads along the creek corridor, and also to coordinate with when signs need to be replaced, that we could potentially have like something within the sign or next to the sign. And then I also highlighted, Lakeview Park, I think is still a little bit questionable. And then possibly the new boat launch could be another location. And then further down the road, when the Century Avenue Bridge gets redone, then we'd love to somehow get some art in there. And then for the 0.5% for arts program, right now what we're working on with Kylie is potentially doing a mural or some sort of facade, interactive, something on the pool. Pool needs some love. And so we're not entirely sure what that's going to be yet. We're just in the elementary phases of exploring that. And then further on down the road, it would be some of those other projects that I had suggested, or that I had mentioned, Creek Corridor, Breezy Park, and the Lake Street launch. So that's pretty much a quick, very quick, I didn't want to keep you too long, so quick overview of what the Arts Committee has been working on. And just like the city, there's only, 8 of us right now, and so we're feeling the weight of all the work.
Oh, nice presentation, Meg. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Very nice.
Yep.
question
Yeah.
or make a suggestion? So you were talking about how it's hard to find space.
Mhm.
I wonder if MG&E, they've got a substation or whatever on Century, the southeast corner of Century and High Road, that triangular area. And there's a lot of, you can't build anything there, but it seems like there would be enough space for some energy related, art installation, maybe touting our renewable energy goals, just like, or symbolizing them. I don't know, just something to think about if MG&E would be interested in letting us use the land and maybe even ponying up the dough to pay for it.
Yeah, we could definitely reach out to them. Do you know if that's in TID 5 by chance?
Not know that.
Don't think
Probably
that
not,
it
because
is.
the corridor, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think that it is, but I would note that MG&E did give us an easement to put a bus shelter on that property, and also MG&E has public art at their facility on Blount. So they may be supporters. It's a good idea.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely add that.
And that's technically my district, so I'm happy to help.
Will you have a call for artists when it comes to the pool meal?
Oh, yes, definitely. Well, what we're working right now on is just getting to the point where we can send out an RFQ, right? Am I saying that right, Abby? And so we need to have a location on it in order to send it out. So we just need to make sure that like the pool is going to work for us. So we're working through all the details with Kylie, and then we'll get that published, and that will, well, we're hoping it gets published this year because we want to move forward with it hopefully in the fall.
And then not to keep everyone longer, but I transitioned out of Arts Committee onto Planning Commission around the time we were talking about the path off Pheasant Branch with the statue there. I'm guessing that.
Yeah, we're running into issues with the DOT on that one. And so it's still a potential possibly, but it might take a couple years to actually be able to build on that exact site. So that's why we're trying to identify some different locations. But if you go down that path, you know how like all the paths could merge together. That was another spot that Kylie had said we could potentially look at as a future location. So did I say anything else wrong, Kylie?
No, not at all.
Okay. So we're really excited. We're making headway, and we have funding now, which was a problem for a long time. And so we're working hard.
Thanks, Meg.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kylie.
And make sure to sign up for volunteering for Art Walk, May 18th.
Save the date.
We have posters now.
Okay. Item 8 is Soul Smart Technical Review of the City of Middleton zoning ordinance for removal of barriers to solar development. Who's going to speak to that?
Kelly, do you want to introduce that?
Sure, yeah. This item is presenting to the Plan Commission a review we received from Soul Smart. And Soul Smart is a national program that's funded through the U.S. Department of Energy. And it aims to make deploying solar in your communities as easy as possible by reducing obstacles to the solar energy. And Dane County has led an effort to get all of the municipalities in Dane County, including the county, as a Soul Smart designated communities in the attempt to streamline and align all of our zoning codes across Dane County so that they similarly address solar adoption and deployment, so that there's less confusion and that it incentivizes residents all throughout Dane County to be able to adopt solar in an easy way by helping to eliminate barriers in city process, especially. And I'm actually going to turn this over to our intern who's been working for the last 2 months nearly exclusively on Soul Smart and has taken a deep dive into this. And this item is really mostly a review of what Soul Smart found when they went onto our website, read through our draft zoning code when it was still in draft form, and gave us some suggestions on things we could do to make going solar easier for our city. So I'm going to turn it over to our intern June guest land, and this is his last week with us here at the city, and I'll let him talk about it.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. And I just like to thank the city of Middleton and Kelly Hilliard for allowing me to intern here. I've learned so much, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity. I don't have much to add to Kelly's introduction to Soul Smart, but a little thing I'd like to add is as we celebrate Earth Week, I would like to mention that Sun Prairie recently became the first city in the Midwest and the second in the nation to achieve Soul Smart Platinum, which is the highest designation. And Dane County became the first county in the nation to achieve Platinum designation. So as Kelly mentioned, this is a group effort for Dane County municipalities. And as part of that effort, Middleton is working to achieve Soul Smart Gold designation.
All right, so I think that the memo that was included in the packet kind of walks through, some of the recommendations that, were made both by Soul Smart and also, June, did you also include in there the memo that we worked on together where it shows the ones that our staff is recommending that we pursue?
So, yes, so the what's included is 4 suggestions, and part of that was that that was after our discussion on what we should pursue, and that is what those 4 suggestions are part of, yes.
Okay, so we have four suggestions here, which we're not really asking the Plan Commission to endorse right now. We just wanted to know if the Plan Commission had any feedback on these items. Our intent would be to wrap these into the next revision to the zoning ordinance, which we expect would happen sometime later in the summer.
Okay. Where are these for?
One of them is displayed on the screen and it is in red.
It's actually all of those definitions.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kelly.
Yeah, I think that Soul Smart was looking to our zoning code and seeing that there were some additional definitions we could add for solar, just to standardize definitions across all the communities for people when they're looking to pursue solar in their commercial or residential home.
I can support these definitions as long as they're meaningful in the context of our zoning code. And just kind of the flip side is if our zoning code is missing references to these different types of systems and we should incorporate them, then I think I would support that.
Any other input?
I would agree with Alder Hanero.
Okay. I think any of this kind of thing that can improve how we develop going forward makes sense. I think we leave it in the hands of Plan Commission staff to bring us maybe a plan that we could get behind. What are your thoughts, Abby, on that?
Yep, we could put that together. as part of a zoning ordinance.
I mean, generally, I would agree. If we can make it easier to implement solar, we should.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of having consistency amongst the communities.
Yeah, I really like the native vegetation requirement. The decommissioning plan is a great idea. Does one exist for the airport array?
I would have to go back and look at the agreement. I think that it includes some language for that.
That's good. And then the fourth one was incentivizing solar, which we already do, right, through our TIF policy, but maybe we need to strengthen that.
Yeah, I think that it's just good to have on plan commissioners' radar, to be thinking about ways to incentivize solar and new construction, retrofits, affordable housing. We already do encourage it, I think, in a lot of ways, and we can't require it by Wisconsin state statute, but in any way that we can encourage it is useful.
I'd also be curious to know what Sun Prairie did to get platinum since we're only shooting for gold. My competitive spirit makes me want to try to be the second municipality, but yeah, that's too much.
Yeah, they adopted a solar app which allows residents to obtain a permit without an inspection on site to review the solar, which there's pros and cons to that, and I won't make them tonight, due to time and off topic, but I'd be happy to talk about that, and so would Jim Scholander, our inspector.
Okay, thank you. So do we need a motion?
I think they were just looking for input, weren't you?
Or do you want us to direct staff to draft recommendations?
Yeah,
Or do you have enough direction?
I mean, Abby, you're looking to work this in by end of summer, right? So I assume we'd see drafts prior to that.
I'm actually more optimistic and think you were going to see that sooner.
And he keeps telling me that, but I'm like, let's say end of summer. Just sure.
Surprises in June.
We have a long list of like little cleanup items that we knew were coming. We talked about that through the course of the project. So we would add these into that.
Okay. Any other discussion about anything? If not, I'll close the meeting.
9:25.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is short.
Nice.
This was short.
Good job, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Kurt.
This was way too long as far as I'm concerned.
I'm just joking.